Good evening. I'm Rob Walter. I'd like to welcome you to the January 13th Cabarrus County Board of Education Business Meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to ask you to rise as we start our opening ceremony.
Tonight's colors are being presented by a combined detail from J.M. Robinson, Northwest Cabarrus, Mount Pleasant, and Central Cabarrus High Schools, and their personnel includes Cadet Technical Sergeant Jacob Grubb, Cadet Major Josh Flanagan, Cadet Airman First Class Ty Anderson, and Cadet Second Lieutenant Karen Echevarria. Honoring America tonight with the playing of our national anthem were members of the Cox Mill High School Woodwind Quintet, and their personnel includes Isabella Arachenko, Brandon Saracola, Kaylee Smith, Stephen Cromartie, and Alexa Acosta. The band director at Cox Mill High School is Mr. Adam Singer. Thank you.
You may be seated. Okay, we need to set our agenda for this evening, and we did have one item that came up regarding...
I'll go ahead. Mr. Walter, I'll make a motion that we add to the end of the agenda just to talk about the retreat dates. If we can add that to the end of our agenda after closed session.
So that would be 12.03.
Yes, sir.
Have a second for that?
Second.
All in favor of amending the agenda?
Aye.
Okay, so now we have to vote for the agenda. Have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Shoemaker,
Second.
second. Ms. Grimsley, all in favor of approving our agenda tonight? Say aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll move on. So the exciting part of our meeting here is the recognitions, and we have some wonderful students and staff we get to recognize today. So the first one is item 4.01, our teacher leaders cohort. Ms. Glenda Jones.
All right, good evening, Board. According to John Maxwell, there is almost no limit to the potential of an organization that recruits good people, raises them up as leaders, and continually develops them. During the fall of 2012, several CCS district leaders envisioned a program to extend the learning of teachers and allow the exploration of leadership options while still remaining in the school building. The group before you this evening that we're going to recognize, and many of you visited with upstairs, is the 6th cohort of the Cabarrus County Schools Teacher Leaders Program. This group met for the first time in January of 2018 with a total of 43 teachers who accepted the challenge. Tonight we have 35 graduates of this cohort. In addition to these pursuits, teacher leaders also collaborated with their principals to develop and take on leadership roles within their schools. Within this group are elementary, middle, and high school teachers, instructional specialists, instructional coordinators, media specialists, technology facilitators, intervention specialists, and school counselors. Many of these teacher leaders also serve in leadership roles, including PLC leaders, TLT team members, school improvement team members, cooperating teachers, and lead mentors and mentors. Our goal for this program was to provide these teachers who are already outstanding in the classroom professional development to help extend their skills to increase the capacity for leadership in their school and in our district. These teacher leaders now use their enhanced skills to have challenging conversations, make strategic and sound decisions, build leadership capacity in others, understand and explain the essential components of effective instructional and engagement practices, and teach their adult colleagues differently than they teach their students. One participant in this cohort said, "I value all of the training that has been taught during this leadership program. It has helped tremendously as I present professional development and act as a leader in my school, making informed decisions and resolving issues." Another said, "It has made me more aware of the importance of my role as a teacher leader in both my school and my profession. It is evident that these teacher leaders now have the knowledge and leadership skills to extend their influence within and beyond their classroom." At this time, I'd like to thank all of our teacher leaders for their hard work, and I'm going to ask that our teacher leaders stand as a group to be recognized. Congratulations on completing the Cabarrus County Schools Teacher Leadership Cohort. All right, I'm going to go ahead and have you have a seat. We do have just one special announcement before we move on to the next one, Mr. Chair, that was a surprise this afternoon that we'd like to recognize here since they happen to be here with the teacher leader cohort. Jennifer Brinson, the 2019-2020 Cabarrus County Schools Principal of the Year, has been selected as the 2020 Wells Fargo Southwest Regional Principal of the Year. Ms. Brinson, come on down. Brinson was surprised by the announcement earlier today. We had the North Carolina State Principal of the Year and a Department of Public Instruction representative attend this afternoon and make the presentation to Ms. Brinson. And Brinson is among 8 regional winners that will now participate in the state selection process. I would like to go ahead and throw in here that we've had the Southwest Regional Principal of the Year now for 2020, We had it in 2015 with Dr. Adam Auerbach, who was principal at the time at Wolf Meadow. I'm not sure if I'm seeing a trend at Wolf Meadow there. In 2013, we had our very own Miss Lynn Reimer as the Southwest Regional Principal of the Year. And in 2012, we had Hilda Batts, who's since retired as. So that is significant for us, in with 11 counties in our particular region, and some, probably 4 or 5 of the largest in the state are actually in this region. So we are very proud of you, Ms. Brinson. I want to give the board an opportunity to shake your hand. Congratulations. Nobody's got a representative here.
Well, that was a special honor.
I'm up again, sorry.
We'll move on to 4.02, which is Hilbish Ford Teacher of the Month.
Yes, and Mr. Tim Vaughn could not be here with us tonight, so we have one of the managers from Hilbish Ford with us, Miss Adrienne Morgan. I'd like to ask her to come on down and be with Dr. Lowder for this presentation. Again, we do want to thank Hilbish Ford for their continued support of this program. We always appreciate their generosity, and we're very grateful that they continue the partnership with us. Our Hilbish Ford Teacher of the Month for January is Colonel Calvin Martin. Colonel Martin, would you, your family, and any of your school administrators who are here tonight please come forward? Colonel Calvin Martin is the JROTC instructor at Northwest Cabarrus High School. He was nominated for this award by a parent who wrote, "Colonel Martin is definitely living his calling. He is one of the most genuinely compassionate people I have ever met. He is always respectful to students and adults and always goes above and beyond to ask questions to find out how students are doing. I have observed him offer to purchase lunch for a student if that was the reason the student wasn't eating during his lunch period. I've also observed him talking to students whether they are in his class or not. He gives them his undivided attention, and the kids feel safe talking to him. I believe Colonel Martin is a Teacher of the Month every day of the week." Colonel Martin, congratulations on your selection as Teacher of the Month. Thank you for the care and the compassion you show your students and for making it easy for them to share their thoughts and feelings with you. We'd like to allow Dr. Lowder and Ms. Morgan here to present you with your award and then have our board congratulate you. Colonel Martin, if you'll go through. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we'll move on to 4.03, which is our Impact Through Education Awards. Ms. Ronnie Boone.
Good evening. Tonight we will present Impact Through Education Awards to students and staff at A.T. Allen Elementary School and Hickory Ridge Middle School. Before we begin, I want to invite Ms. Emily Satterley and Ms. Adrienne Gonzalez to join me at the front of the room. They are representing AXA Advisors this evening. Thank you. Stand right there for me. Thank you. And we want to thank them and their firm for their generosity in sponsoring these awards for us this school year. So we appreciate it very much. First up is A.T. Allen Elementary School, and I just lost my earring. It's A.T. Allen Elementary School, and I'd like to invite any administrators from the A.T. Allen Elementary administrative team to come forward at this time. And I understand our first honoree from A.T. Allen Elementary is not with us this evening because she is under the weather, but I would like to read her bio that was provided to us. The first honoree is Abigail Burgermeister. Abby has a heart of gold. She's kind, consistently considerate, and a friend to everyone she meets. She's such a positive role model and sets an example of excellence in behavior. As a student, she is an extremely hard worker and always looks for ways to challenge herself and grow. Abby is a conscientious and responsible student. She shows self-discipline by staying on task to complete her work, and you can always count on Abby to do the right thing. In every circumstance, Abby approaches life with a positive outlook and desire to help others. She's always eager to help others as well. Last year, students read a book called Jelly Donut Difference, which is about little ways to bring kindness to others. And Abby spent the year spreading jelly donut differences in her classroom and her community. A.T. Allen looks forward to hearing about her continued success as a student leader and a future game changer in the community. Congratulations, Abby, on your award. Our next honoree from A.T. Allen Elementary School is Wesley Shutt. Would Wesley and his family please come forward? Leader is a common descriptor when Wesley Shutt's name comes up among the A.T. Allen community. He quickly makes friends and demonstrates a positive attitude. Wesley is trustworthy and can always be counted on to step in and help others where needed. His work ethic has always been motivating to others, and his classroom participation is contagious. He always tries his best and never shies away from challenging work. He always faces each task with a positive "I can" attitude. Wesley always shows respect to adults and to his fellow classmates. Wesley listens to everyone as if they are the most important person in the world. He consistently strives to make himself and others better daily. He is completely authentic and has a presence that makes others feel the same. On Superhero Day, he dressed as his brother who serves in the military and told everyone he was dressed as the most important superhero of all. Thinking about the impact Wesley has made at A.T. Allen brings a smile to any Cardinal's face. He comes in every day with a smile of his own and brightens up whoever he is interacting with. Congratulations, Wesley, on receiving this Impact Through Education Award. Mom and Dad, you can go too. Shake hands too. Our next A.T. Allen honoree is Mr. Doug Carr. Would Mr. Carr and his family please come forward? Mr. Doug Carr is an amazing asset to not only the A.T. Allen community, but to Cabarrus County Schools as a whole. As a school social worker, his job is to wear many hats and support the many needs of both big and little people. He does this with ease, professionalism, humor, and grace. Mr. Carr consistently goes above and beyond for the students, families, and staff. He advocates for all students and families and helps problem solve with colleagues to ensure student success. For years, Mr. Carr served multiple schools as a school social worker. He also mentors new social workers, coaching and supporting them as they grow into their new role. Mr. Carr is not only a champion for A.T. Allen Cardinals and families, but also for the school district and Cabarrus County. Mr. Carr has led and been a liaison within the Hispanic community, working collaboratively with district translators, employees, and community partners to implement an annual Hispanic Resource Night for families. Each year, this event grows and enables families to connect with local community partners and connect resources with families. Mr. Carr seeks opportunities to go into our communities, meet families and students where they live. He recently created a partnership between fourth graders and high schoolers from Central Cabarrus High School under a mentoring umbrella. Due to his leadership, the elementary school students are learning at an early age the drive and choices they'll need to make in order to be successful in high school and beyond. His kind, caring, and professional manner makes him loved by all he meets. A.T. Allen Elementary is privileged and honored that Mr. Carr represents the school as a game changer in education and know that he will continue to positively impact future generations. Congratulations. And our final A.T. Allen honoree this evening is Michelle Lugo. Would Mrs. Lugo and her family please come forward? When you hear the name Michelle Lugo in the A.T. Allen community, one thing that will follow is she is always willing. She's always willing to help any way she can for all students, families, teachers, and staff. As a district translator based at A.T. Allen Elementary, she is a liaison, advocate, and voice for those who might not have one. Mrs. Lugo will contact, advocate, go on visits, and consistently partners with teachers and families to bridge the communication gap. Mrs. Lugo will have lunch with students to help if they are having a bad day or to just be a smiling face that encourages them. Mrs. Lugo wears many hats. She positively impacts the school community at the district level. She spends time all over the county lending her translating talents to those in need and helping families and teachers connect to ensure students' needs are met. She also translates documents to ensure our Hispanic families have access to information across multiple schools. Mrs. Lugo also is a collaborator and contributor to the planning for the annual Hispanic Resource Night. She builds relationships with families and students. These bonds go beyond translating and help empower students and families to know their children are safe, valued, and cared for, on top of getting an education. Through these relationships and partnerships, she helps create connections and sustain positive relationships. She always has a smile on her face and treats everyone who comes through the school doors with warmth and kindness. Mrs. Lugo changes the game for so many in the A.T. Allen community and positively impacts the students, families, teachers, and staff there. Congratulations. Now we'll move on to honoring students and staff at Hickory Ridge Middle School. Would any members of the Hickory Ridge administrative team please come forward at this time? Our first honoree from Hickory Ridge Middle School this evening is Caleb Mattis. Would Caleb and his family please come forward? Caleb goes above and beyond in class and out of the class every single day. He is consistently responsible in class and never hesitates to help others. He demonstrates his empathy, courage, and true sportsmanship. Most recently, he made the Maverick family extremely proud by agreeing to participate in a wrestling match with special needs students. He graciously allowed the other young man to win, impacting not only the day, but the life of the other student and the families from the other school. His character serves as a role model to be emulated by his fellow students, which is the greatest impact a young man or woman in 8th grade could have. Congratulations on your award, Caleb. Our next Hickory Ridge Middle School honoree is Maya Saunders. Would Maya and her family please come forward? Maya is the kind of student that every teacher wants to have a classroom full of. She's an absolute academic powerhouse and has a natural intellectual curiosity that can be rare in 8th grade students. There is no doubt why she is in the top of her class currently, and that she will be there for years to come. Additionally, Maya exudes kindness and warmth, making her an excellent student and classmate for her peers. The Maverick family is extremely pleased to present Maya with this Impact Through Education Award. Congratulations. Our next honoree from Hickory Ridge Middle School is Lisa Hammond. Would Ms. Hammond and her family please come forward?
I got the school family.
That's fine. That's fine.
Spend more time with them.
Lisa Hammond is a paragon of empathetic outreach for her students, and it is a privilege to work with her on a daily basis. She's been a Maverick for 9 of the 10 years Hickory Ridge Middle has been in existence, and has been an advocate for the school ever since she stepped foot in the door. Forming relationships with students is the most important aspect of teaching and reaching adolescence, and Ms. Hammond is a role model in this practice. Students who have been through her class know that she cares about their lives, their issues, and their education. She has always been willing to assist new teachers and considers that a part of her educational duty. In addition to her classroom responsibilities, she is also an assistant with the wrestling team and serves as a representative for the school's PTO. Ms. Hammond has had and continues to have a crucial impact on education at Hickory Ridge Middle School. Congratulations.
They all look so much alike, right? Yeah.
And our final honoree from Hickory Ridge Middle School this evening is Mr. Tim Cobert. Would Mr. Cobert and his family please come forward? Tim Cobert has one of the most demanding jobs at Hickory Ridge Middle School. He is an assistant in the teach classroom, but you will also never not fail to see a smile on his face when you pass him in the halls. He is extremely kind with both students and staff. The impact that Mr. Cobert has on his students is immeasurable, and the relationships he builds with his peers, students, and families are long-lasting. Mr. Cobert takes tremendous pride and care in what he does for the Hickory Ridge Middle School community. Congratulations, Mr. Cobert, and thank you for making an impact through education.
We will move on to 4.05. Oh no, it says 4.04, Outstanding Elementary School Science Teaching Award. Dr. Hill, welcome.
Good evening. We are pleased to have Miss Jessie Enlow, who is our K-12 science specialist, who's going to present this award. At this time, would Laura Cabarrus and members of her family please come to the front?
On behalf of Curriculum and Instruction, I would like to congratulate Laura on being awarded the Outstanding Elementary School Science Teaching Award from the North Carolina Science Teaching Association. Laura was selected to receive this award based on her many contributions to STEM education in Cabarrus County schools and North Carolina, from providing rich learning experiences and unique opportunities to students, to hosting critical professional development to support teachers. Laura has truly taken on the mission of enriching science education and bringing STEM to life. Thank you, Laura, for your service to Cabarrus County Schools, and she received her award in November. Thank you.
Oops, wrong one. All right, now we'll go on to 4.05, which is the Holiday E-Card Contest winners. Dr. Lowder and Ms. Boone.
Long time no see. In November, we announced our 9th annual Holiday E-Card Contest. Students in grades kindergarten through 12th had the opportunity to submit original designs that, if selected, would be used in Dr. Lowder's official holiday communications. Each of the winners will receive a certificate commemorating their achievement tonight. They also will receive a day pass for 4 to Great Wolf Lodge to enjoy the water park there. We want to extend our thanks to Ms. Angie Brown, who's the manager of Great Wolf Lodge, for providing us with those passes, and we know that the students will enjoy their time at the water park. Tonight, I'm very excited to present the winners of this year's contest to you. As always, Dr. Lowder had a difficult task selecting his favorites, but he always manages to do it, so we applaud him for that. Without any further ado, let me introduce you to the winners of our e-card contest. Students, when I call your name, would you please come forward to receive your certificate from Dr. Lowder? In the traditional design category, the elementary school winner is Ksenia Nikolsina from Cox Mill Elementary School. And there's a photo of her artwork on the monitors for you to see. Okay, just stay up here till all of them are up here. And our middle school winner from the traditional design category is Addison Autry from Harris Road Middle School.
All right, now I'll get a picture with you in the group. Just those two would be good. And then I'll get one with you. Okay, now you between them in the back or something? Okay. That kind of evens it out. There we go. I got it. Thank you.
Our high school winner is Akhilesh Shivaramakrishnan from Concord High School, and he is not able to attend this evening because he is being sworn in as the president of the Concord Youth Council. So that's why he's not with us this evening. So congratulations to him.
The recognitions are always my favorite part of this meeting, where we can hear these wonderful stories about how these students are impacting their schools and some great talent from our artists here. Before we end the recognitions, I did want to recognize our SRO from Odell Elementary, Travis Burke. Thank you for attending tonight and providing safety for our meeting. Appreciate all that you do over there at Odell. All right, we'll move on to item 5, which is approval of minutes. We had 2 sets of minutes to approve. There was some corrections that were found. I don't know if those have been incorporated already, so we don't have to worry about it. Okay. So if you've had time to review those, we need a motion and a second.
Yeah, I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman, to
For both?
approve the minutes, and we'll just note that the corrections were all minor. There was no content change.
So noted.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harrison. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we'll move on. Item 6 is board chair and superintendent comments. I'll keep my comments short. There was a pretty cool article that came out from Carolina Demography that talks about the top employers of the state and the county. And their report shows us, Cabarrus County Schools, as the top employer in Cabarrus County. Actually, from my understanding, we had over 5,500 W-2s that have been issued, so that's a lot of folks that are involved in our school system and making an impact in our community. So we had some, Mr. Harrison wanted to bring something to our attention, so I'm going to pass him along to him for two different announcements.
Just a few quick things. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Cabarrus County Education Foundation is an organization that's been in place for about 19 years, I believe, and goes through lots of efforts to generate contributions and provide money for teachers for classroom activities. This organization is very dynamic and is working very hard to make an impact on students' classroom, teachers' efforts with students in their classrooms. And the foundation is having what they're calling a Game of Games night. It is on February the 29th at 7:30 from then until 11 o'clock at the Cabarrus Country Club. This is a 1920s style themed get-together, and again, all the proceeds go to the foundation to provide grants and funding for classroom needs. And let me also emphasize that those needs are not met anywhere else. Those needs are always unfunded by the state, not the county, and the funds are made available to teachers through the foundation for special curriculum activities. And you can find information on that at cabarruscountyeducationfoundation.org. And please click on purchase tickets for sponsorships to join those festivities, if you will. Another item, please, if I can have a moment or two more, Mr. Chair, involves the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. I spent 3 hours this weekend out at dpi.nc.gov and clicked on K-12 standards. Those standards are going through the process right now of being vetted and being announced to the state for public input, and I'll say it's quite an eye-opener. These are social studies standards, and I would really encourage parents and community people to weigh in and understand what the curriculum standards being proposed might become. It's a series of surveys per each class module or unit that teachers would then develop into actual lesson plans. And again, I'd like to just very strongly suggest everyone weigh in about how your children are being taught social studies, history, civics, economics, those other things that fall under the social studies umbrella, if you will. Again, that is dpi.nc.gov, and click on K-12 standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Next item is 6.02, superintendent comments. Dr.
Thank you,
Lowder.
Mr. Chairman. I want to begin tonight by welcoming everyone back to school and wishing everyone a happy new year. I hope your winter break was enjoyable and that you're rested and ready to finish up the first semester and kick off the second half of the year. I also want to reiterate what we did earlier, how proud we are of Jennifer Brinson, the regional principal of the year. As you said, the current serving principal of the year came to give her that award today at Wolf Meadow. She's one of 8 people eligible to be the state principal of the year, and we certainly look forward to crowning her the North Carolina principal of the year in the next few months. Exam days for high school students are January 17th through the 24th. Please remember that our high schoolers are dismissed early from school on exam days. A few other important dates coming up. Monday, January 20th is the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Schools and district offices will be closed. Monday, January 27th is a staff development day that school will be closed for students. And Tuesday, January 28th kicks off the second semester. This Wednesday, January 15th, is our annual district spelling bee. The top spellers from elementary and middle schools will compete at Winkler Middle School. We certainly wish them all good luck. Our district has received a $1.4 million grant from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction's Center for Safer Schools. The grant funds will be used for school resource officers, school safety equipment, student and crisis services, and school safety training. This is certainly a nice award. It goes along with the School Board Association award that you guys were present for. It's the same group of people that work, so we certainly want to commend Ms. Reimer and Ms. Lowder, our safety director. Ms. Jewell, I think, has a sick child, is not here tonight, and Mr. Basilis, all who work together with lots of other people to kind of serve on that all the aspects of school safety, which are kind of the physical parts of that, but also the mental parts for that. So we certainly appreciate all their work. More grant news. Cox Middle Elementary School received a $32,000 grant from the Jimmy Johnson Foundation Champions Grant to create a critical thinking lab in the school's media center. The lab will include coding and robotics, virtual reality, a 3D printer, and brain games. The project will help students think critically about their schoolwork and beyond. Cox Middle High School received a $73,000 coding and mobile app development grant from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. The school is one of 15 recipients of the grant, which will be used to develop computer science, coding, and mobile app development programs for all their students. Congratulations to our Air Force ROTC instructors and cadets at Mount Pleasant High School as they earned the highest rating attainable, exceed standards on their unit assessment. And finally, I want to recognize our Board of Education as we observe School Board Recognition Month. Cabarrus County Schools is grateful to our Board of Education for their service to our students and to our system. They tackle the enormous job of governing our school district, and their thoughtful actions and decisions affect our children's lives. CCS is fortunate to have such a dedicated group of individuals supporting our schools, students, and staff. So please join me in giving our school board a round of applause. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you very much for those comments, Dr. Lowder. We have item number 7 is guest speakers. It's guest speakers to address the board, and we've got one. Is that it? Just one? So we have one guest speaker today. There's a policy 2310 that outlines how the guest speaker, how much time they have. They have about 3 minutes to talk about a school-related issue, and I'm going to ask Mr. Guile to come up to the podium if he's still here. And thank you for coming tonight.
I wanted to use my time tonight to share what this process has looked like from within our neighborhood over the last couple of years since the search for a realignment committee began. Multiple members of Skybrook applied to be on the committee to represent our community, and none were chosen. Multiple members of Skybrook attended every committee meeting to observe, study the data, look at the maps, and interact with Matthew Cropper whenever we were allowed to, and at first our insight was appreciated. Per those interactions, there were multiple options presented to the committee regarding Cox Mill, and significant discussions around our school took place. And on the evening of July 24th, 2018, the committee overwhelmingly selected option 3 for Cox Mill over any of the other options, as that option met all of the criteria set forth by the school system and provided room for growth within our school for years to come. However, somehow over the next 2 months, that option was removed from the committee discussions, and our neighborhood became the sole focus of removal from Cox Mill, regardless of how hard we campaigned and despite the fact that it didn't resolve the growth issues, still leaving Cox Mill above capacity. I don't know if the removal of this option was a direct result of the committee members that live within the impacted neighborhoods, someone within the school system getting involved directly with Matthew Cropper to amend the proposed options, or influence of others from within the school directly. All I know is this, is that we became the target solution to the overcrowding, even though our removal would not have reduced enrollment enough to solve the problem, and you'd still be addressing the situation today. However, through this process, I've been very proud of the time, energy, and consideration that has been given to us from a number of you, so thank you very much. However, we've also been very disappointed to see how politics and animosity towards us has factored into this process, especially over the last year or so. I was told on the night of the realignment vote by one of the board members that was in the minority vote that I sure hope you don't need to come back to us for any favors down the road. I've also learned over the last week since the last meeting, the same board member is on social media and has liked posts that suggested and or applauded our removal, as well as endorsed the removal of the board members that voted for us in the first place. So our ask is simple. Please give us fair consideration to all the options. and then we'll gladly do whatever you recommend. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Okay, item 8 is approval of the consent agenda. There's a number of items and policies on that consent agenda that hopefully you've had time to review. I need a motion to approve and a second. We have a motion by Mr. Harrison. Second by Ms. Furtenbaugh. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Make a comment, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I will be voting no on this, and I just wanted to make sure that the record reflected that the reason that I am voting no on this, that there were 2 members gone, and so when you say that it was put on consent, only 5 members of this board voted for the consent, and there is an item on here that all of you are aware that I do not vote for, and so this is the reason that I will be voting no for this.
Okay, I didn't get any indication that you want to take something off the consent agenda, but
Everyone knows 4,700 this girl will not vote for, and you all are very well aware of that.
you do have a history of voting against that policy. That is correct.
You will see that. So I'm just making you, and I want the record to reflect this. And you know that only 5 members voted for the consent agenda. 2 members of this board were gone for this. Only 5 members of this board voted for this consent agenda.
And we do allow board members to pull things off the consent if they want to. Just let us know. So we have, I think, all ayes but one. Is that correct? Let's do a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Okay, so we have 6-1. Smith Carpenter opposing. All right, moving on to our action agenda. 9.01, the approval of policy 2330, board meeting agenda. And we have Ms. Reimer and Ms. Burns. Thank you.
Yes, sir. The changes I think that were requested by a board member have been made, so we just want to make sure you guys are good with that.
I don't think we've had any comments this week. Anybody? Okay, seeing none, we should call for a vote here. So we have a motion, Mr. Furtenbaugh, second by Mr. Harrison. All in favor of this, approving this policy, 2330, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, motion passes. Moving on to 9.02, approval of furniture order for Hickory Ridge Elementary School.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We have completed the furniture selection process for Hickory Ridge Elementary School, and I am here requesting approval for the contract to School Specialties in the amount of $855,353.12, which is within the budgeted funds we had included.
Do we have any comments?
Just one question,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
you probably answered this. And as we all know, the video was not available, and so I couldn't go back to hear it.
Okay, sorry.
So you may have said this, but were those put out to bid? And I know you're saying it's all under, or did y'all just submit?
So that is, we purchased that furniture off of a national purchasing agreement. So we do an interview process with certain furniture vendors. We select the one company that we want to work with, and then they solicit pricing from vendors within that contract. So they do put the project out to bid.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Shoemaker.
And this was following the way we did the purchase for some other schools as well. So we followed this
Yes, sir.
the same precedence to use NCPA as our, I think it's the national coalition.
It's the same procurement method and
Yeah.
Contract.
So we've used
correct.
it several times before, and we've been happy with the results, and the pricing has been very competitive.
Competitive, yes, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to make a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I don't have a problem with the budget amount, but I would like to add that to our postmortem, because I know we had some issues with some of the furniture and their quality, and I
Sure.
would like to see that assessed on our next postmortem.
Yeah, that won't be a problem.
Thank you.
On this side, Ms. Furtenbaugh? Mr. Harrison? Nothing on this side. Question I had is, what was the furniture amount for our last elementary school? Was it close to this amount?
The question for Royal Oaks, what was the Royal Oaks furniture budget? Do you remember? Yeah, I'd have to look that up, but I could get that to you.
Just seeing if we're consistent or the prices have gone up, prices gone down at different size school.
Yeah. It seems like it's a good sign that it was within the budgeted amount, so
Yes.
that seems reasonable.
Okay, any other comments? I'll need a motion and a second to approve the furniture order for Hickory Ridge Elementary School.
I'll make a motion that we approve this, the order for Hickory Ridge Elementary School, please.
Okay, motion by Mr. Shoemaker. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Mr. Harrison. All right, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Say no. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
So
Just
stay
stay
right,
here.
there, stay right there. We have another furniture order for West Cabarrus High School.
Sure. So we've gone through the same process with West Cabarrus High School and have arrived at our contract amount with Meteor, which is the company we are contracted with for this package. One thing to note, this is slightly less than what I presented last week at the work session. A few nuances this week and some discussions with them, and we were able to eliminate a little bit more money out of the contract. But this contract is for $1,619,136.16, which again is within our budgeted funds.
Do we have any comments on this one?
Not really comment on the bid because I read through it, and it seems like the school staff that's already been named must have worked through what furniture they want in what space.
Yes, we had the ability to work with Mr. Smith and his staff and team on numerous occasions on things that they really would like to try and capture within that furniture package.
And the elementary school bid was very nice because it had the small icon photos of the equipment so you can kind of visualize what these descriptions meant.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the high school one is a different vendor and they didn't do the same process.
Yeah, sorry about
So, but thank you for sending those out to us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But the pricing between the two vendors for similar products was
They were,
pretty much the same.
yes, sir.
I have one question. It's actually, you might be able to answer it, but I think Ms. Klutz would be able to answer it better. And it's really about the sales tax. You know, we have this one particular one. I think the other one had sales tax as well. Do we get much of that back, or do we get all of it back, or is it being purchased through the county kind of, or just?
Yeah, we actually get a credit for all of that sales tax because we do funnel that, we do send that through the county for payment. So yes, we get all of that sales tax back.
That's a lot.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All right, I'll need a motion and a second for the approval of furniture order for West Cabarrus High School.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Harrison, second by Ms. Furtenbaugh. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you.
So next item on the agenda is 9.04, adopt the budget resolution for 2019-20. Ms. Kelly Klutz.
Good evening. The only change that we've had since last week from this week is there was a note on the slide where our Mary Frances Well funds had not dropped down from the state, and guess what? They dropped down the first installment for Mary Frances Well dropped down today. So that's the only change in what I presented. Yeah, so that was good news from what I presented to you last Monday. So, is there any questions?
Questions?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. We have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Furtenbaugh, second by Mr. Harrison.
Thank
All
you.
in favor to approve our budget for the next for this fiscal year, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That motion passes. All right, so we're moving right along. We've got item 9.05, the approval of the realignment recommendation for Cox Mill Elementary. And again, we have an overcrowding situation at Cox Mill where there won't be enough space for any more students come next year. So we need to come up with a solution that would move students from Cox Mill. And there's, I guess, three proposals, or two recommendations and another alternative that was suggested to discuss. So if you could go over, since again, like Ms. Carpenter said, that the video from last week did not have the audio to it, could you go briefly over the presentation and highlight some of these recommendations?
Yes, we do have a recap for you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair, members of the board, and happy Board Member Appreciation Month. Cox Mill Elementary School currently serves 1,165 wonderful students in a setting that was designed for 920 students. I want to sincerely thank you for your involvement and concern regarding the issue of overcrowding at Cox Mill Elementary School. Over the last month, you've met with staff, visited the school during the school day in order to witness the impact of overcrowding. You reviewed the compromises that have been made at the school, and you are currently considering options on how to best serve all the students in a safe, secure, and less crowded manner. Unfortunately, as pointed out, due to a technical difficulty, the audio from last week's board session did not record as expected. In an effort to begin the continuation of our discussions regarding the overcrowding at Cox Mill Elementary, Ms. Reimer and I will review the goals, options, and timeline that were discussed last week at the work session. Once we review these items, we'll turn it back over to Chairperson Walter in order to support you, in order to continue the discussion, comments, and questions. And lastly, in order to support you in your recommendation for realignment, Cabarrus County Schools staff have provided you with information that includes the maps that you see beside you, and also the in a larger format up here beside us. So with that being said, I'd like to review our goals for this evening. So we take a look at our purpose, and that's really just to evaluate and consider decisions based on the impact of the rapid population growth and student enrollment in the Cox Mill Elementary School District. The first goal is to understand the growth trends in the geographic areas around and in Cox Mill, Odell Primary, Odell Elementary, and Boger Elementary. Secondly, we're going to discuss and review potential options for the relief of overcrowding at Cox Mill Elementary. And then lastly, this one was added this week to vote on a realignment recommendation for Cox Mill Elementary School.
Okay, I'm going to go over a couple of the options that the board has asked us to look into and what we presented to the board last week. The first one is a realignment committee recommendation. It moves students from Cox Mill attendance zone to WR Odell attendance zone. The impacted planning blocks are 69, 70, 71, 76, 464, and 83. We have an estimated students to be realigned as 155. If you look, Cox Mill would lose 155 students with an estimated realignment and projection for the next school year of 1,072. Odell Primary would gain 71 students for an estimated realignment after realignment and projections for 836, and a projected enrollment at Odell Elementary School for a plus 84, total 929 after realignment and projections for next year. Here's a map, and again, you've seen the maps over there. You can see the area outlined in red with the planning block numbers as well as the students that are represented in those planning blocks. That is current K-5 students, or 40th day, this school year students. Option 2 was recommended by the board or asked for us to look into by a board member. This is moving an additional planning block, number 468, from Cox Mill to WR Odell and align the Boger attendance zone with the 2020-21 Northwest Middle School boundaries. Impacted planning blocks are 468, 69, 70, 71, 76, 464, 83, and then aligning with Northwest Middle would be 37, 38, 39, 41, 42, 47, 51, 56, 57, and 58. Estimated students to be realigned are 233. Projected students from Cox Mill is 187. Projected students that would move from Odell are 46, and you can see the population below. Would move 187 students out of Cox Mill for a after realignment and projection number of 1,040. To Odell Primary would add 86 and lose 24 for a realignment and projection number of 812. Odell Elementary would be add 101 students and lose 22 for after realignment and projection 907. And then Boger would gain 46 students for 691 total. This is the map here, the top portion being the portion that aligns with Northwest Middle School, and then the bottom portion with the addition of one planning block at the bottom, same as the first.
Okay, well, that we'll take a look at the recommended timeline and next steps. So obviously last week in our work session, We did a report. We reviewed the capacities at the schools, which you all had a chance to review already. And we talked about recommended options, which is where we came up with the two options that Ms. Reimer just reviewed with you. Tonight, the goal, as stated before, is to, again, discuss that, look at those options, have further comments, discussions, and then ultimately vote on a realignment recommendation. The next step would be to have a public hearing so that the public has their questions answered, their comments reviewed, and then on February 10th in the business meeting to have a final vote and approval of boundaries. And yes, this is a very accelerated, quick timeline, and the main reason for that is because kindergarten registration, the online registration, begins in March, and school-based activities begin in April. And in order to serve our students and our families in a way that provides them with the most information going into the 2020-2021 school year, we need to do that in as timely and thorough manner as possible. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chair Walter for additional comments, questions, or discussion from the board.
Okay, and we did have a good discussion last week, but since it wasn't recorded, may have some of that again. But I did want to give the two board members that were not here last week the first opportunity to share their comments and thoughts. So Ms. Grimsley, can I start with you on sharing your thoughts on these proposals?
Absolutely. So can you go over option number 3? Because it doesn't have the same type of criteria as your first two options. So tell me plus and minuses. I mean, I see that it's...
Yes, so we had a board member request a third option for us to try to look at. We made a stab at that early today. If you can pull that up on. In this option, you can see that we're looking at plan of block 77 and plan of block 465, I think that is. I can't see it with the line over it. That is Winding Walk, as well as plan of block 76. If you look at the bottom of that chart, you can see that it shows you the number of students that are currently in those areas. And again, this was a request from a board member.
So if I mean, it's kind of hard to take that information and do anything with it because I don't see like what we get after the projection. And I know it was a late request, but with me not being here last week, I didn't realize that was not one of them. So can you give me a better idea of what the projected enrollment would be after moving? I mean, I don't know how we do this without looking at.
Yeah, it appears to be essentially 10 less, right?
Yeah, I actually charted all of the planning blocks in that area for all the options we might consider. And I think it was the 40th day of 2018 and the 40th day of the fall of 2019. So last year, Winding Walk from the Ellenwood entrance and from the Harris Road entrance, because they're connected, but it looks like it was maybe platted in two different plats or something when it was originally built. That was 249 students. This year it's exactly 200 students. So they've actually lost student population. I'm guessing it's the timing of when the neighborhood was originally built as far as, so the Skybrook area went up from 70, well, counting the three parts, or those three planning blocks, the one east of it too. It went up from 100 to 176 this year. So I'm guessing that's turnover to the next round of owners, is what I'm guessing, and the growth in the apartments perhaps. And Winding Walk actually went down. So Winding Walk by itself would not net enough. I also took a drive. I like to drive these roads because I'm a studier of maps. You guys know that. But then I like to go drive it. And based on how some of our previous maps were, the Cox Mill Elementary letters were actually on top of the one entrance to Winding Walk. So we couldn't see that in the maps. But when you drive it, there's a winding walk entrance on Ellenwood, which is, I'll say it goes from Christenberry to Clark Creek Parkway to Ellenwood. And that's the way Mr. Guile has in the past describes he drives his children. So my concern is, how could you say a neighborhood can continue to drive past a neighborhood who's been put off to another school? Did you get a chance to go out there by chance?
I did. I actually went today. That's
Did
why
you
I was
see that
kinda
winding
curious.
walk where it
Well,
comes down
I guess
there?
my question is, when you're headed down Poplar Tent and you take that left on Harris Road, North Chase, Planning Block 76, and Skybrook is all to your left. So it maintains on the left-hand side, which is really where Odell
North Chase is on the left, Skybrook's on the right. at that
Right, I'm
point.
talking about Winding Walk and North Chase. Because
Yeah,
they
but that-
align with each other.
Well, that's the top. Yeah.
Right.
That's
but
the
what I'm
top
saying.
entrance, not the
you
southern
have to
entrance.
go right to the right side of Harris Road to get to Skybrook. So it doesn't make sense to me that you're staying left with Odell Primary and Odell Elementary. That stays left on Harris Road with 76 and Winding Walk. Why would we send them across the street, which is that is a busy street, to catch 5 different areas and planting blocks? That didn't make sense to me. Why would we
I
not
drove
keep
it
the
the other
aligned
way.
vertical versus...
I drove from Cox Mill Road, the school.
But you wouldn't
down
go
the
that way.
hill.
You would go from Poplar Tent.
What's that?
You would go from Poplar Tent.
No, I drove it the way the families have said they drive.
Well, I don't know about... not every family's going to drive it the same way.
No, but
I'm
that's-
talking about
that's-
our
What way does
buses.
the bus go?
What's that?
Yeah,
What
we
way
want to
does
go
the-
the way
where does the
buses
bus go?
The bus goes on Poplar Tent.
Right.
Well,
So when you're coming down
I don't know if
Poplar
all of them,
Tent-
but I know one of them at least does. So.
Right. We couldn't go out and drive every family's direction of where they're going, but we definitely can relate to the buses. And to me, when you're coming down Poplar Tent, I don't know why we would not stay vertical with Harris Road to the left, which is Odell's side, versus going across to the right-hand side to catch 5 or 6. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think because my thinking is it comes so far south and it goes down and has that lower entrance.
Actually, North Chase and Winding Walk catches more of the front of Poplar Tent than Skybrook does, because you have to go out.
Yeah,
Harris
Winding
Road.
Walk's not on.
It's right behind North Chase.
Yeah, but North Chase is very deep and it's partly commercial.
Well, it doesn't matter, but you're still on the same side, so they wouldn't have to cross over and catch the right-hand side. We've always talked about main roads not going
Okay,
back and forth.
explain. I don't see a difference in where the buses go between the two subdivisions. Is there a difference?
I would have to confer with Mr. Whitaker on that to know about the bus routes from him.
Well, they have to come down Poplar Tent. There's no doubt. That's the direction.
Now,
they have
Winding
to
Walk
go.
would come down Ellenwood.
Not necessarily, and I would like to have that information because I didn't take it, and I don't know that anybody that doesn't know that road exists would take it. So to me, we don't go down back roads. Normally, we can, but we don't. But Poplar Tent is your main road of entrance there. I don't even begin to understand why we would go down and catch a right-hand side subdivision, 4 or 5 of those, when there's easily, and it's not picking out one subdivision. That is just what logically made sense to me. If I wouldn't have even known what the subdivision names were, it would have just made more sense. And definitely, I think catching, Edison Square, to me, we would be zigzagging back and forth. I drove it myself. It did not make sense to me. I can't imagine Mr. Whitaker saying that would make sense.
Which one are you referring to? Option
Edison
2?
Square.
468.
Yeah. That option didn't even make sense to me. To me, this is what happens. People, when you're doing this, and I have been a part of redistricting, so I feel like I've got a little bit of experience and knowledge here. When it looks good on paper, that doesn't always mean that it makes sense in transportation routes. And that's what we have to look at. That's why I would really like transportation to weigh in here and give us some, advice. Because me driving it myself, I can't even imagine us doing that every day and catching 4 or 5 over here on the right, because you are passing North Chase and Winding Walk. It's not, to me, it gets to pitting subdivisions against each other, and I hate that we go there with this. But we have to do what's right, and we have to do what makes sense. And here we're going to catch 2 subdivisions. That's going to catch way over the amount that we're looking at that we need. But we've got to go over here, and to make that work with another option, 4 or 5 that are on the opposite side of the road, and you do bypass those others. That does not make sense to me at all. So I would like to have transportation to weigh in on that.
Yeah, and I think the difference is I drove from the school. I didn't just go on Poplar Tent. You went as if the school is, I guess, dismissing down Cox Mill Road. I drove it early afternoon, coming down Cox Mill Road to Christenberry, turning right, which is the way the parents have said they drive.
But that's not, well, I'm not worried about how the parents drive. I'm concerned about transportation in the buses, and that's not how they're going to drive. So,
well, if you leave Cox Mill Elementary, go the way I drove to go north.
But you wouldn't leave Cox Mill Elementary, and that's definitely not the way that you would start.
Do our buses go into Mecklenburg County? Would they do that?
Sometimes they have to go
can
there.
do that if they need to. And there's that corner up there.
Or if they got to go into, if you're going the way Ms. Furton was talking, you go into Mecklenburg County.
That wouldn't even make sense to me. That
Well, I'm just thinking because Winding Walk, let me see which planning block it is. The one that's on Ellenwood, planning block 465.
So how many of y'all, and I'm not picking on anybody, but just so that we all know that we're on the same page, how many know where Edison's Square, I guess it's Square, how many have driven that area there and knows exactly where that is? Okay, so does it make sense to you that we would go down, stay on the left-hand side, bypass North Chase and Winding Walk, and go over here and pick up 4 or 5 subdivisions to come back out to go to Odell? When North Chase and Winding Walk is actually, truly, if it weren't for the demographics out there, it would almost be in alignment with.
Well, but I think if you look at the map, and this is where you have to combine the driving with the map, why would we isolate this neighborhood here that's in this lower part of the yellow to say you're going to go over to the east, and people who are closer or further east, you're going to keep coming south? That part doesn't make sense to me.
Well, for me, I have a problem that we're not looking at, and I spoke with Ms. Reimer about this, that we're not looking at shifting over some of Odell's district as well.
Yes, we are.
That's an option too.
Not as much as we need to Boger. That's what I've talked about in our meetings that we've had.
Let's talk about option 2 then.
Yeah, but option 2 has a
but
nice
it doesn't pick up. Yeah, you're right, but it doesn't. It's still trading off the subdivisions that we're talking about.
Can you rehash what you need? What information do you need?
I want transportation to weigh in on option number 3.
And then you had another comment about not enough from Odell to Boger.
Right.
Do you have a
We
suggestion?
talked about, because I've talked about, I don't see where we've got complete information on build outs for Odell, which is a real problem for me. And I want to make sure, and I talked about this in that meeting, that Boger is such a huge demographic. Boger definitely has the ability to be, Lynn, we talked about that, so. if you wanna
Respond
take
to
it
real
from
quick.
there.
Yeah, we did, and Ms. Lane will continue to look at that for you guys so you can have it, but the one point that I will make very clear is that the yields, the student yields in that area are much less than they are in Cox Mill, so you have to keep that in mind. She's working on looking at yields and how long it takes and how many, the build out and the plots and the platting, and she's done a lot of that and giving you guys a lot of information. So if there's something exactly specific you want, if you'll get it to me, we'll try to get it to you as soon as possible. But we have looked at that, and the student yields are much less in Boger and even Odell than they are in the Cox Mill area. So that's
Right.
very important to know.
What I don't want to get to is what I feel like we're going to, because when you look at these numbers of what we're doing to Odell, we're going to be there not too much longer in dealing with Odell. So to me, if we're going, I don't like to piecemeal this stuff. We've had to do it, and we'll have to do it again. I would like to see us make a good move, and if it incorporates moving some to Boger, shifting that over again, because this is what we've talked about. This is what I talked about. I pulled the clip from when I first got on the board about when we were discussing this, that when we make this realignment, it's got to make sense. Just shifting from here to Odell, which when you look at these numbers, we're eating those capacity numbers up a lot. You know, it's not going to take much more to cause Odell some problems within the next year or two. So while we're here, if we need to move that on over to Boger and incorporate some of that redistricting part of that piece, I would like to do it all at one time instead of having to come back, because my question is, and you know I asked you, if we had done what we were talking about last year, we wouldn't have done enough, right?
So in my professional opinion, if you'd have done what we asked you to do last year, we wouldn't be standing here today. We may be able to make it, and I would suggest, and I would say, I won't be here in 2 years to have to help you with that, but you will be looking at middle school realignment, and it would be a perfect opportunity at that point to see where the growth is and realign your elementaries to your middles. That's what I would say.
Okay, did we get all your questions out there? Okay, Mr. Carpenter?
Well, I would like to make one more statement.
Please do.
This one's just a statement as it is. So I know that we're really dealing with this because of this legislative classroom size reduction is a lot of it. It's not because we all made bad decisions. It's not because we didn't do what we were supposed to do and we weren't accountable. It's because of that classroom size reduction is a huge piece of this. Okay, so we need that said so that everybody understands. It's not because we looked at it and said, well, we see those numbers of students and we're still not going to deal with that. We didn't know when they were actually going to do it. I want to know, when we were on the board before, when I was on the board before, we always had meetings with our legislative representatives. And I don't know when the last time y'all did that. You know, I don't know how much input we've had with some of these discussions regarding that class size. But it's so frustrating for me to sit here and say, you know, the real impact is the buildings, you know, how much money it's costing us to really do this and to make this happen. And that we aren't allowed to be grandfathering in these schools that were not built for those capacities, nor that classroom size reduction. That is not, to me, and I'm really going to get on my soapbox tonight, and I don't do that often, but it's not fair. I really feel like we need to address some of that. It's not fair that they push down these mandates and that we have no answer for it. It makes us look like we're not doing our job, but in actuality, people don't understand that there's a lot of things that come down to us that make these numbers a whole lot different every year. It's not that we didn't do what we were supposed to do, it's that these rules get pushed down to us and then we have to make those changes. And it's really aggravating. So I don't know, Mr. Shoemaker, were y'all involved in any of that discussion?
Not only were we involved, but the entire NCSBA was involved. It crippled the smaller districts. This destroyed them, and they had to come up with funding at the local level. We sent plenty of letters to our legislative representatives, from the Senator Newton, who was a part of that vote. I sent him a very, very long letter about detailing the fact that all of our schools were designed around a DPI standard of 25 students per room, and they were completely blowing up the design, and he wouldn't design a power plant that way. But
for the public, can you explain what the class size ation is?
Well, I'd rather someone expert talk about it because I might misstate it, but let me finish this and then I'll ask Mr. Schultz or Ms. Reimer to talk about the class size in detail, because I think they can articulate it much cleaner than I can. But we really did, and the NCSBA really fought it hard, but there was Downing determined that they were going to reduce class size, and that was a winning talking point. And it had benefit, but it also had benefit during that time. We inflated our grade 4 and grade 5, because when they originally passed it, not only did they force us to smaller class sizes in K3, but they didn't give us any more teachers. So then we inflated class sizes in 4 and 5. It was ugly in the beginning. I asked Ms. Klutz the other day if she happened to have how much money mobile units have we purchased since this began, and she says it's really hard to discern the difference between purchasing for replacement and purchasing for this. But I think we could go back and look at some of our past requests and get an estimate of how much money we've had to spend, or not us, but the county commissioners. We've asked them to spend prematurely on inflating our square footage to accommodate this particular law. It was a sore point, but it fell on deaf ears, and the Senate was bound and determined to have its way, and it did, and it got its way on it.
Well, since I just come back on the board and didn't have a lot of that background, and I know y'all have had some discussions, but trying to get up to speed with all this, it's just frustrating to me to understand that, I was hearing that they were going to push it, so I thought, well, it won't hurt us too much from this last year's discussion, and decision, but they did pass it, and now we do have a problem. It's just, to me, I would love for us to be, and I know that you were, but really to hit that again, to be proactive in asking them to fund teachers assistants and teachers. You know, if we're going to have an impact on classrooms, you know, if you took a classroom of 20 and you had a teacher's assistant, you just put those down to 10. I mean, how much better of an impact could you get with that? And I don't ever hear that much discussion
So
about that.
they did. After the first couple years of doing this, then they did bring us some teachers. And so Dr. Lowder can talk to that. And we saw that this year, and we were able to do a budget reduction. And part of that budget reduction was the result of growth that we have in the district. But they did fund us teachers to support the lower class size. And they are anticipating to fund us, huh?
I didn't think it was all of them.
Yeah, but still, it's teachers. And so we're getting teachers to support this lowering class size so the encore pieces are supported in the way they haven't been. So that was a win, but it took a couple years for them to turn the corner and come into that. In the meantime, we had a lot of hard stuff to deal with. And believe me, all the districts have been grumbling about it. I hear it at the board of directors meetings, and we still grumble about it. And so, but there's not a lot of undoing. It's almost complete. Next year, I think, is the last year of this. And if y'all want to articulate a little bit about the
Sure,
changes in class size
add
really quick
a little
from Ms.
bit more to
Grimsley's
that, and I'll send
edification.
you all the slide that shows there's actually 2 additional years of phase in. We are at where the legislated class size, we are at that right now in terms of the ratio in classrooms. So in kindergarten it's 1 to 18, in first grade it's 1 to 16, and in second and third grade it's 1 to 17. Where the difference is over the next 2 years, so those will remain in place the next 2 years. Where the difference is over the next 2 years is that what we can do is our average as a district actually goes down. So right now our average as a district can actually be at 1 to 19, which means that if you have 15 in one classroom on one side of the district, you could have 21 in another classroom, but the district average has to be 1 to 19. So that actually drops next year 1 to 18, and then the following year it matches what the classroom ratio is. So there's no average that is above any classroom averages. And then lastly, individual classes can go a little bit higher than the district average, but again, you still have to average out of the district average, and you still have to follow the ratios. So those, the individual class and the average class actually decline over the next 2 years. So in the case of Cox Mill, as we demonstrated last week and shared with you in some one-on-one conversations, if we had the students right now at Cox Mill that we had next year, because the average is going down across the district, we would need 4 additional teachers right now that we don't need right now, but next year we would need those right now. So that is a direct explanation of how that class size legislation is still impacting us.
So, but I'm hearing Mr. Shoemaker and y'all say that they have funded the teachers. So that piece of it where we used to have really issues, that's taken care of.
Well, I'd allow Kelly to chime in on that a
So
little bit. But
they haven't funded the teachers. What they did was start giving us enhancement teachers again. So what we had to do for the past 20 years essentially was, if you wanted an art teacher, you had to raise the class sizes and everywhere so you could carve out an art teacher or a music teacher. Now we're in year 2 of them giving us back part of those enhancement teachers. So they give you the class size and then say, we're going to give you 15 more teachers that'll be art, music, and PE spread across all the districts. So we're in year 2, we'll get another quarter of those for year 3, and then the following year we'll finally have all of what's allotted from the state. So we're halfway through those allotments. It takes 2 more years before we'll actually be there. Does that fund everything that we need across the board? No, but it is the significant change. But 4 years to implement is a long time that we still have to kind of eat those until we get all the allotments for them.
So just one more question, and I'm going to throw it out there. So I was a little concerned that we do have the magnet program there, and I know we've had some discussion about that, but I'm thinking, is it wise to keep that program choice there if we're critical at capacity?
I feel like we're on the, who's going to punch the button first? I'll just be brief, and then we'll let Mr. Schultz speak a little deeper to it. The majority, 2/3 of the students that are in that program live in Cox Mills District. We only have about 40 to 50 kids at most that come from outside of Cox Mills zone, so all those students would be allowed to stay because that's where they live, unless they live in a redistricted zone. So I will say Coxmill Elementary's done an amazing job with this program. It is flourishing at Coxmill, and I would hate to see that something change in that program that may harm it by moving it. But and again, it wouldn't get you where you need to be. There's the numbers, the numbers wouldn't be there. Families would still have the opportunity to stay at Coxmill, somewhere around out of the 190 of them, somewhere around 170 of them would be able to stay. Or something.
Could we get the information of where those kids come from? Okay. Which subdivisions, which areas? Okay, great.
Ms. Carpenter, your turn.
Well, Holly, you took a lot of what I was going to say. One of my biggest concerns is I really feel that we are just, at this point, what I'm seeing right now, we're just taking our problem and moving it from one section up from one school to another school. We're saying, we've got a problem, we got to take 200, we got to move it from one area to another area. Because I've seen the growth, I'm from this area, and I know that we're going to have that growth come to the Odell area. The numbers when we had the Cropper study come, they said, the numbers are low, they're not right. And as we know with what had happened to us at the state level with the class size, that did hurt us. I don't think that this board made saying, you should have done this or you should have done that. I don't think that had anything to do with it. We're one of the 12 counties that are growing and in the whole state, and it has been said it's going to happen. We're going to even ourselves out in 5 to 6 years. And it's going to be one of those things that's going to happen. Right now, we're not. But I'm scared we're just taking the problem and moving it. We're going to have to do more than just take it and move it from here to here. And I think it's going to be a combination of doing not just one thing, but 2 or 3 things. And I don't think it's going to be map 1, map 2, or map 3. I think it's going to be a combination of 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think we're going to have to put our heads together and look at more than, like I say, than 1, 2, or 3. I think but I want to do it right instead of hurry, get it done, and then us have to go back again. I don't think it's good for the children, and that's what it's all about. I don't think it's good to move a child 1, 2, or 3 times. We need to get it right before we do it. And I'm not going to do it and then turn around and do it again. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut and look at it and try to get it right.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shoemaker, you want to give a summary of what you talked about last time or anything else?
Yeah. Well, there are several things that we talked about last week, and one of them was the assumptions that were in the Cropper study. And if you remember, the Cropper study had assumptions going from A to S, and I still haven't totaled up the numbers to see how many assumptions there were. But in assumption F, it said all currently planned, platted, approved housing developments are built out and completed by 2026. However, when the Cropper study was performed, they had the housing plats from the early part of 2018. So this new development that showed up on the plat over in, it's not one, which one it went to 100, I can't see the name of it on this map. I think it's Panningbuck, is it Allen Mills? Thank you. Yeah. So Allen Mills was not even platted or on the radar. So how could Cropper account for something like that? There are others like that, and they've also happened over in Boger. So since 2018, there's been a lot of platting going on when they froze their assumptions so that they could build the model. The next assumption that they had, which is assumption G we blew out, said the district will add at least 1,400 new housing units annually until 2021. after 2021, the district will add 1,000 units annually. Well, you saw in your report that there was 1,855 housing starts between Cabarrus County and Kannapolis City, and over 1,500 in 2019 as of November, not counting what may have gotten started in December. So, and just at 1,500, we're averaging over 100 housing starts a month. So, I don't know what that number is, but it's probably close to 1,700. So you blew out that assumption. Then the rate of students transferring in and out of Cabarrus County schools will remain at the 17-18 rate for the next 10 years. Well, our growth has been somewhere in the 1.7 to 2% rate, but we're somewhere around 600 to 800 students every year, I think is what we're adding. This year we actually added more, didn't we?
In certain areas.
Yeah, I mean total.
Overall, but in certain areas.
Yeah, but so we're not holding stable, but they had to build an assumption. That's a model, and they got to make sure the model can't be but so dynamic. I mean, calculus is a hard thing anyway. But so then the intra-district student transfer rates, moving between schools within the district, stays at the 17-18 rate. Well, that's a harder one. I've asked for information on what does that look like over the years, and it's going to be a little more difficult for them, but they're trying to pull that data for me. The next one was there are no changes in the state guidelines regarding school vouchers and inter-district transfers. Well, we've still got this ongoing, which they did not have in their assumption. They didn't have the ongoing law change. So I think they built it in, but it wasn't in the assumption. The law change wasn't in the assumption. So they may have built it into their model, but they didn't have the law change stated as an assumption. But I don't know if there's been any other changes in vouchers and district transfers. But finally, the housing turnover rates, sales of existing homes, remain at their current levels, and the majority of existing home sales are made by homeowners over the age of 60. If majority are made over homeowners by the age of 60, then you're probably getting middle level families. When I say middle level, it's ones with middle school and high school students, not kindergarten and K-5 students. So the housing turnover rates, we know that this county is still booming. We're starting new houses and homes are selling very quickly. A friend of mine just bought a house that's been on the market less than 30 days, so they're hard to find, and he thought he was going to go into a bidding war over Christmas, and he was lucky he didn't. But it's getting ready to turn, and housing starts nationwide and housing sales nationwide are going up. So we are faced with just the fact that a booming economy has kind of blown out some of the assumptions that the Cropper study had. The other thing is when we look at our options, option 2 was an option that was kind of proposed. It's a little slightly different now than what was proposed last year in our conversation, but the purpose of this option was to do some shedding, was to shed students from Odell to Boger, to create that, and to try to find a corridor that would make sense. And we were trying to pick up the Highway 3 corridor to make sense, and that's so you see in the option 2. And actually, I didn't have a chance to give this to Ms. Lane, but she kind of knew what I was talking about when I told her about it, and I think Ms. Furtenbaugh had shown it in one of her presentations, so Ms. Lane had that available to her. But option 2 is to take students and push them onto the Mooresville Highway corridor and move them over towards Boger, where we can populate Boger.
Aligns with the middle school.
And it does align with Northwest Middle. Also, if you notice, the north part of Davidson Highway that's going to Odell currently, all will end up going to Northwest Middle School eventually. So if we want to shave off more out of that area, then we would have to go south with those red lines to help shed the students from Odell at this point in time. Back to what Ms. Reimer has talked about was the fact that housing yields in the Boger community haven't yielded as many students, but there may be a dynamic going on that we're not really sure of, and that dynamic may be that we got younger families with younger children, and so we haven't seen them come into the schools because this doesn't address preschool age children, and we haven't really. I mean, Cropper tried to address those things, but his study now is pushing 3 years of age. or over 2 years of age, 2 years of age. So those are the dynamics. Boger is set to explode. I don't see us not having to revisit this in another couple, 3 years, because the community is changing. One of the things that we are seeing is dense homes. The housing is so much denser than what it used to be. And I'll give you, for instance, in Kannapolis, we had a new housing development that came up. It was platted on 72 acres of land. 35 acres of the 72 acres are where the homes are going to be, and they had 278 homes. Do the math, and you can see how many homes per acre we're talking about. But this was and this one was going to yield 200 K-5 students based on our current averages. Well, that was going to blow up Boger all by itself once it comes to fruition, and it's probably got I was figuring a 5-year build out, but the fact remains is that's what the tendency that the municipalities are driving for are really tight communities. They're allowing the developers to beg for a redistricting, not a redistricting, a rezoning or conditional rezoning to support denser development so that they can, I guess, maximize the profit per acre and get the infrastructure in, because all of these have to come in with, water and sewer and cable and electrical, and so they want to get all of those things in there. And you know, as a builder, what the tensions are for someone developing a piece of property. They got to make it work. So that's what we're faced with, and they're having a hard time pushing back, I guess, at the municipality level, because Cabarrus County really doesn't do developments. So as we look for these options, we've got a shed from Cox Mill north, so we got to take the north portions to shed that to get to Odell. Then we got to take the north portions of the Odell and shed those over to Boger, and that will be a solution for a few years, depending on what they plat after we have this conversation today. Because there's probably plats that are getting ready to hit us again that we don't even know about, but we'll, as this area matures, and one of the things you got to remember. What just happened recently over at Odell Elementary across the street? Kannapolis just finished getting a sewer right away built across the street. So now they go under 73 with a sewer right away, which is going to really open up a rather a rather open area for more development.
So can I interrupt you for just a minute?
Yes, ma'am.
So what you're saying is really where I was going. So option number 2, that to me didn't give Odell any more ability to go over into Boger's.
Yes, it did.
Well, it does, but
I mean, it can go further. I mean, I'm
yes.
not. If we're
that's what I'm saying. If we're going to do
quibbling-
that, and you've just validated everything I said about how Odell does need to be larger and absorb more of Boger because of all those facts, but I don't see a really good answer on these yet with that.
Well, this is shedding students to Boger.
It is, but not.
But we,
how many.
we know that if we get the high school, and this is another thing, if you get the new high school for Northwest, and somehow, we've spoken about it to the commissioners, that high school is important for us to build when we start looking at the long-range plan, because that creates 500 more high school seats. It thus opens up that campus to where we could possibly do another, we've not approved anything like that, but another Odell's concept over there where the old middle school is, because we moved the middle school into the new high school the old high school after we renovated it, and then we would have almost the same Odell kind of situation, which would allow us to shift more students over from Odell.
That's what I'm talking about, though. I'd like to see us shift them all now.
We don't have. We could shift some more, but you can't shift them all.
You can't shift them
Because
all,
of course
but
Boger won't be able to
I'm
handle
not
it.
for us doing a shift and then in a couple of years. If we're going to do this with the middle school alignment, I would like for us to have an idea of what we're going to be doing there, and we do have a basic idea. So can we get, and I didn't ask for that, Barry, I'll let you finish yours, but can we get the middle school maps for this next time too as well, just to kind of see, because it shows this one little area, but it's not really what the middle school looks like.
Right now, let's try to keep it to the elementary school.
Right.
Well, I know, but if we're going to say that we're going to work with the middle school alignment,
We're not going to know what that. How are we going to know what that's going
no,
to
I'm
be?
talking about what it looks like right now. I want to see what
it looks like right now.
Right now. Yeah,
Well,
I know, we don't have any
That's
projections.
out there on the
that.
website.
Right, because that really will give us a little bit more information.
Yeah, it's on the website, and basically everything north of 73, all the way to Boger, is Northwest Middle. That's really the line for this particular area.
Mhm. And I know basically what that looks like, but it helps to see the actual map of it.
Yeah,
Because we can get.
Yeah, I'm saying everything north of 73, all the way down to where 73 intersects on the middle part of the blue is all going to the middle school.
Yeah, but 73 is way down here.
Yeah.
So this is still staying at Harris Road for the next year.
Is it?
Yeah.
73
That's the whole point. That's what I was
right
trying
there.
to.
So
Yeah.
this lines up. I believe
we're
option
not
2
looking at
lines up to the proposed
That's not
middle
going to
school
Northwest?
boundaries in August.
That's what it was.
It already lines up if we use option 2. That's kind of the nice part of that is the kids will move, but when they go from 5th grade to 6th grade, they're still with their same neighbors. So.
Okay, Mr. Shoemaker, do you have anything else right now?
Not right now. I'll be
Okay,
fine.
Ms. Furtenbaugh, you put
I
in an awful
yield.
lot of work on this situation. Can you give us some insight on what you...
Yeah, so, I was at it again last night. So anyways, just segue from Mr. Shoemaker that in our 10-year plan, we do have the next elementary school in the northwest, and I say those 2 words, north and west corridor, being at the renovated Northwest Cabarrus Middle School. So we don't have another school to build, so when we start looking and we move over to the right on the maps from west to east, previously, prior to 2016,
Yep, there it is.
the board had voted to move that planning block 8, which is on Concord Mills Boulevard. That was already being moved to Carlway Fir. So Carlway Fir has no more room. They can't take anything else off of that right side. So when we look from west going east, Boger is the only opportunity to have a fair amount of growth. And the good thing is it looks like they have potential room for 160 in mobile units. Mobile units aren't ideal, but they do have a decently flat piece of land to put mobile units. So that's the goodness and kind of saving grace, because not every school has that layout to put mobile units. As we've seen many times historically, when there's high growth like there is in Cox Mill Elementary's district, we keep closing the circle. We close in on the school, in particular elementary schools, because there's multiple elementaries to a middle and to a high. So we close in, and that's what we're doing. We're drawing that circle in against Cox Mill Elementary now. We saw in the presentation last week that in a normal area, what we're most familiar with, we have, and see if I get this right, we have one elementary student per 2 households. No, but in Cox Mill we have,
Yeah, 1 to 2.
I'm sorry, we have 1 per 3 houses for elementary only. Yeah, there, she's helping me out with the picture. There we go, there's the houses. So 3 houses across the district yields 1 elementary student. That's not middle or high, that's just elementary. In the Cox Mill Elementary School District, for whatever reason, we have the yield of 1 student per 2 households. So that's a significantly different dynamic. Cropper, the board, no one could have predicted that was going to evolve in that way.
50% increase.
So having said that Boger has the most room, I like the idea of this option 2 of aligning it to the previous middle school decision that we voted on last year. And whether we take planning block 468 Edison Square or not, I don't have a strong opinion on that, but I do believe we need to keep that circle and keep closing it in around the school. So,
It's 45.
that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for those points, Mr. Harrison.
When I got elected, I had the impression that I would please all the people all the time. And I've found that was not a true representation of my role with the county. I also like option 2 because it's kind of redundant in some ways, but it seems to certainly be a better use of facilities at Boger. It improves, my thinking is that it improves the road safety in the Odell and the Cox Mill area for less traffic possibly, or traffic that's redirected. And it accounts for future growth as well as it's more sustainable for the longer term. But the long term ain't a long term in Cabarrus County, as we've just said several different ways. The best cropper assumptions, I'll say got blown out of the water many times, as Mr. Shoemaker has said. We don't have a crystal ball, and we are never able to quite pin down what the future is going to be. We can only react, and that's just the nature, all you candidates out there, that's just the nature of what we do here. We have to react to economic developments around the county. That is just has always been the case. And so there's no shaping and molding and planning for the future so much as we're just seeing what the present holds for us and having to ask the county commissioners to make adjustments to that. But at least option 2 for the near term or the relatively short term is as sustainable as we can make it for the foreseeable future. And I wish that's the direction we would go in.
Thank you. Laura, you got it?
I always like being last because I feel like y'all have already said all the really smart stuff. But what I will say is that, initially when we did this and we knew that no matter what we decided with the cropper study, it was going to be a difficult decision, I think, for everyone on the board, and we worked very hard on that. Actually, looking back on it now, I'm very happy with the vote that we made, and unfortunately that none of the numbers were accurate, and here we are again having to redo this. So that said, I am fully anticipating that probably 2 to 3 years from now, we're going to be back at this same place no matter what we do. I asked you, Lynn, for a logical map, something that just, kind of made sense, at least for right now. So thank you for that. And, like I said, like everyone has said, that this is going to be one of those decisions that does not please everybody. We're never going to be able to please everybody, but we are at a critical time with Cox Mill, and we have to make a decision, and we have to do it quickly. And so it does put us kind of under the gun to make the best decision that we can make with the information that we have right now. So that's.
Do any of those options, 1 or 2 or 3 or anything else?
I definitely think that at this point, option 2 is probably the one I'm leaning towards.
Because that moves more out of Odell, or is it just?
Well, I think that it's just the more logical placement at this point of what we have. I don't know that I necessarily like the idea of just moving one neighborhood. I would much rather kind of just do it based on what is going to move the children in a logical progression as much as possible, with the potential middle school alignment as well. So.
Thank you. Ms. Highsmith, you listened to us for the last half hour. Anything pops into your head for a staff perspective? Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Chairman. Can I just make a point of clarification?
Mm-hmm.
Our legislative agenda as of 2017 has included an itemization, number 8, about the K3 class size legislation and the immediate impacts on Cabarrus County since March of 2017. Ms. Furtenbaugh and I, as I recall, sat in a coffee shop and hashed some of that out, and then the staff produced some numbers for us, which might be different by now, but we've been presenting the local impact and the local ramifications of K3 class size legislation to our own legislative delegation for at least 3 years now.
Thank you. I had a couple questions still. If you look at the planning block 77 and it drops 50 students, I mean, that's over a grade level as far as representation there. Doesn't that send a red flag on why that would be so different? We double checked and triple checked those numbers. I mean,
We absolutely can double check and triple check. Miss Lane is here, and if I say this wrong, I'll let her shake her head. But we do believe that we also had a very large 5th grade class and a smaller kindergarten class coming in there. So if you have anything else you want to add to that, I hate to throw you on the spot, but we have double and triple check. We will quadruple check it for you this week.
yeah, we don't want to make a mistake if we're using these numbers to make a decision.
We're very
We wanna
confident
make
that's
sure
a geocode, and those kids, that's the number of students in that planning block. Exactly why, we can get you the
And
details
you compared
this
it
week.
from last year. And
Yep, we'll get you the details this week.
what else do I have? Why did we not just make a separate planning block for the apartment complex and one in Skybrook? I mean, it's got.
Because that's not really in Skybrook, that's just the name of
So
it.
should it have
It's
its
not
own?
in
Should it have its own
Skybrook.
planning block number?
Yes, it should have its own planning block, because it's not in Skybrook.
We were not directed to find a planning block for apartments. Now, we can do that if you'd like for
No,
us to.
I mean we're grouping the 60. Planning block 69 has a large jump in it. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And then we're attributing most of that to there's an apartment complex that's at that location.
That is
Or
correct.
somewhere in that location.
That's correct. Miss Lane and I looked at that earlier today. About somewhere around 70% of the students in that planning block are from an apartment complex.
And if we're all about keeping kids together, you kind of want to block those or group those folks together in a. It's just, I don't know, I think we should consider that. Not that it's going to change our decision.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I
go
may.
ahead.
The Skybrook Drive is what is right across Ellenwood Drive, and I know you did the drive out that way too. So that is Skybrook Drive, that entrance you see across the street. It looks like it does, while there's apartments on the front, it looks like it does go back into the neighborhood, into the golf club. So that would be a singular identifying a subgroup of people, and we try not to do that.
I was just trying to keep kids together. It's if that's the group. The other one that was brought up to me, what about a STEM program at Boger to attract some of the students?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
A STEM, if we don't have a magnet program at Boger at the present time.
That is correct.
There's an overcapacity, I guess, for STEM. There's more students that want to be in the STEM program than we have seats available. What if we had a STEM program at the elementary school? Would that draw enough students away from Cox Mill?
Certainly not.
That was the question.
Yes, so certainly not in time for next year. We don't have a principal prepared, teachers prepared, program prepared.
Okay, so that's not an option.
Yeah, it's not an option.
Okay.
A question that was asked to me, and you can maybe explain, why do we not have Odell, primary Odell elementary on the same start times? I mean, basically, it should be one whole school, and that's one of the complaints. Well, we had heard complaints before, and
Yes, I'm gonna let Mr. Schultz speak to it now. I do know that when Dr. Probst was here, she did a survey. There's a lot of dynamics around families that have two kids, one at the elementary and one at the primary school, and being able to drop those kids off. You couldn't drop them off if they were at two different locations, and so we have visited that in the past. And Dr. Probst did a survey of those families, and I think that the data from that, and again, I don't know exactly where all that data is, but the data from that was that they were happy with where they were. Now I can let Mr. Schultz speak to today.
No, most of what I was going to say, and then in addition to that, it actually creates a longer bus ride for the students. So if you have K-5 students on a bus, you go drop off at primary, and you still have 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders on that bus, then it creates a longer route then for those 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders to get to the elementary school. So it's also about bus rider time.
Okay, we getting our questions answered. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had, two comments. Just one is for you. I have a friend, a real good close friend that was there at the very beginning of the Odell experiment, and they went through a hard time trying to get it all sorted out with all the parents coming in and going out. So Ms. Probst was working diligently on trying to get that straightened out, and it took about half of the school year to get it so that it worked like a well-oiled machine. And that staggering was important to make sure that parents could get their child over to the primary and get their child over to the elementary, and so that really helped with the parents, because parents were sitting in line in one school, then running over to the next school, and if they were all released at the same time, then they wouldn't have that capability of getting both of their children if they wanted to do that. And a lot of parents still didn't want to forego the ability to pick their children up, so they were willing to wait in line for two schools at slightly different times. But I know Ms. Probst worked, Dr. Probst actually worked a lot on that, and I thought she did a really good job with both principals trying to get that coordinated, and I think it works pretty well. I haven't heard any more real complaints out of it now, but it was tough in the beginning. It was very hard for the parents, but it works much better now. The other question more of a question, in option 2, if option 2 would be to come to fruition or something like that, I would like, Ms. Grimsley asked for something for the winding walk transportation. I would like to see how they would do a transportation action with just the whole option 2 towards Cox Mill and Odell, because I think that they would attack it strategically differently than they would if you had a blended option. I think that they would bring a very different look at how Art and his team would go after it.
Yeah, I'll look into that with Mr. Whitaker and Mr. Wright.
I don't understand what you mean by a blended option.
I didn't mean a blended option. I'm just saying there was an option that Ms. Grimsley was talking about here, getting the transportation for the board request to Winding Walk. And I just wanted to see what the transportation option would be for option 2. I don't know if we're going to end up with exactly what we see on option 2, but something very close to this, and how he might respond to option 2. So option 2 as it is to Odell and to Cox Mill.
So, and I'd just like to make sure I'm clear on what I've asked for too. So, I would really like to see the sheet that you have for option 1 and option 2 are very detailed. I would like to see that same sheet done for that option 3. That is the Winding Walk 76 block. And I would like for you to go back and add, it's so confusing to sit here. I mean, I know y'all probably know these numbers off the top of your head. Well, let's go back and add the same line for option 1 on Boger, because I don't know, it shows me what Boger is for option 2, but I don't know how that's affected for option number 1. I mean, I guess it doesn't change, but I'd like to see what that looks like. And then when you go back and do option number 3, do the same thing. Just have all the details in that the same way. Go back to the Boger option. Tell me exactly again what you want. So if you just take your 1, 2, and 3 and do the same exact detailed information that you did on number 2. That shows
You mean that box
Boger's-
chart?
Yes, that box chart is really good information.
And then you said something about Boger. You just want Boger added to
Yes, to all 3. Yeah, to all 3. And then if I can get the middle school mapping. Yeah, thank you.
The point of clarification, Ms. Grimsley, on so your proposed recommended option 3, you're asking for the same shift as option 2 from Odell to Boger, same planning blocks to align with the middle school boundaries?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
And she also asked for Boger to be blended on option 1, but remember, option 1 was actually the original committee recommendation, so that would be like an option 4, so that you don't lose that. Yeah. Yeah. Just keep that one the same. Just
465 in that one too. Yours 465.
Okay. Go ahead.
73.
Several microphones are on.
I can turn
Carolyn, turn your mic off, please.
And I'm not advocating one way or the other because it will change the calculations, but can you speak to whether or not option 2 would accommodate grandfathering the 4th graders heading into the 5th grade, and whether or not transportation would be provided for those grandfathered students? Can you give us any kind of outlook on that, please?
Yeah, so grandfathering, we sent you the slide that was presented by Cropper to the board where they discussed that the fifth graders would be grandfathered. That was part of his plan. Cabarrus County Schools has not ever done that before, especially when there's no space. Certainly we'll do whatever the board asks us to do there. I do think it will impact your numbers a little bit as far as space in general, but we'll do what you ask.
Okay, what are we doing for the rest of the August 20 alignment? We're not grandfathering?
Yes, we did. For August 20th alignment, we did in areas, and the reason why staff came back, and because you guys asked us to revisit that and look because you had so many people asking, we had space in all the schools. Every school's with space, but parents had to provide their own transportation. We will not, anytime we grandfather, we don't provide transportation except for our seniors that we have to take to the school. Like, there won't be any seniors at West Cabarrus, so we'll take them to their school. But other than that, we've never provided transportation.
Yeah, I would think that we would have to offer the same criteria as grandfather fifth graders with parental transportation.
But again, there's a space issue. So we got to keep that into consideration. That's what we're doing here, is trying to alleviate the overcrowding situation.
Yeah, what were the numbers?
Did you have something else,
We'll pull
David?
those numbers and have the exact fifth graders in each option for you next
Did you have
week,
something
so
else,
you can
David?
see how many fifth graders you have.
Only
Rising fifth graders.
Only just to clarify, we would allow grandfathering of fourth and fifth grade students without.
Well, that's a board.
No, it's a 100% board rising fifth.
Rising fifth graders.
Yeah. It would
Without.
be a full board decision.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
I had
and the grandfathering question can be answered later. Right now, I believe we only need to make a decision what to move to public hearing.
Okay, so right now I had two more questions that I wanted to have answered. You gave me a number of 200. None of these options even is going to hit that mark. In fact, it's not. Some of them are significantly less. Can we actually survive with less than the 200?
Number 4 will.
Okay.
So
Number 3 does. It just hits it at 200. The planning block 76 and Winding Walk, if we did that shift.
we will do those numbers for you. Remember that we have to roll out fifth graders, bring in kindergartners to do those charts for you, so you can get a projection in there. You're looking currently at current students on the 40th day, so that number may or may not be the same.
Right.
Okay, so yes, when we first sat down, you just asked me what's the magic number, and I said if we could get 200, it would be great. That would be the number I would say would be perfect. When you start playing with planning blocks and kids and neighborhoods and getting logical boundaries and being able to look at transportation, that's not always possible. So based on what the board's asked us to do, we have drawn up the 2, 3, now possibly 4 that you guys have done. And if you got 200, that'd be great. If you get 185, can we make it? Yes.
Is there a minimum number that would?
I wouldn't go much lower than that. I don't know exact minimum number, but.
Okay, hold on. And the last question had to do with, again, the community that has been invested in this school since it's opened. Is it fair for them to be the ones selected instead of doing a satellite district from the new one and moving that to Odell? But that creates a whole, either Odell or Bogart, that creates a whole other set of issues, and it probably does it not cover the amount that we needed in a short period of time.
So let me make sure I understand your question. If we were to do a satellite group and not impact those that were originally at Cox Mills that we said?
Correct. If it was a different group that met the newer subdivision.
Yeah,
I think you need to talk to the lawyer about that.
Yeah. Would not be administration.
Yeah, I'm not advocating, but it's been mentioned, so I'm going to mention it.
It would not be a recommendation from administration based for several different reasons. Our attorney can speak to some of that, but it's been done in the past. But certainly there isn't. It's not. That is a short-term fix. If you had a school plan for a year down the road, I think you could probably get by with it. But you don't. So it could be years that you're satelliting a group completely out, and it's just.
So the last time we did this, actually, we had a plan in place.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we approve option 2 only for the public hearing. It's not the final decision, because option 2 is the most comprehensive, and we can take anything out of an area we can't add into an area. or we can make special accommodations, whatever we hear at the public hearing. But option 2 is the most comprehensive as far as keeping planning blocks under consideration for a change.
Okay, do we have enough board members that are agreeing that we need to do something?
What's
We
that?
have to do something?
She made a motion.
Yeah, she did make a motion. Okay, do I have a
Did make
second? I'm sorry.
motion.
To discussion? Is-
I'm gonna put another proposal on the table.
Hold on, we got discussion on this proposal.
Well, she can give discuss. She can
Yeah,
use that
this
as
is part of the
discussion.
discussion, yeah, she can discuss. Go ahead, Carol.
I want to put my proposal on the table. I've got a proposal to put on the table. Because I want them to work up something I've got. Got to follow my proposal on the folder. I'm going to write it down. Mine is to do block number 76, 77, 465, 464, and 83, to move those to Odell. Then to transfer to Boger 37, 38, 39, 41, 42, 47, 51, 56, 57. Oh, I'm sorry. You can't hear me. You did, okay. We were to 57, 58, and 68.
Can you read those numbers again?
Okay. All right. The ones to move from Cox Mill to Odell: 76, 77, 465, 464, and 83. That'll just kind of make that line even. Then to move to Boger: 37, 38, 39, 41, 42, 47, 51, 56, 57, 58, and 68. 68 is that odd piece on the side there.
So, Carolyn, just for ease, I think you're taking this whole northern part, correct?
Right, and
From
then
option 2.
and then the 68, which is that odd piece on the side there, right there at Cox Mill.
That's disjointed.
And just taking that and sending it to Boger. Taking that little odd piece on the side there and letting it go to Boger.
That's only 12 students, and that's the Amazon warehouse road. That's Derrida.
Well, I know it's only 12 students, but look at some of those other ones. I'm trying to get as many as I can to go to Odell.
Right, but they're literally like around the corner, top or bottom, from Cox Mill Elementary.
Or to
That's
Odell.
really stretching it.
They're closer to Odell than they are to Boger.
But the spaces at Boger.
Oh, yeah, but that's
Oh, you're saying to take them to Boger?
To
Oh.
Boger. To Boger.
long run.
That's a long, yeah, that's a long way.
That's not horrific.
That's a long run.
It's not any further than 37 or 199.
Oh, it is.
I don't think
I
it's
mean-
that far to Boger. It's right around the corner from here, from right there across the street. To Boger.
68's the airport. That's driving from the airport.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. That's a pretty rugged drive. I just did it. I've done it several times this past week, just for doing other stuff, and it takes.
So,
a good
well,
almost 15
I'll
minutes.
drop 68
That's
off.
7 miles.
So, all right, drop 68 off. It just looked like an odd piece.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
All
Yeah,
right,
and
we'll
I have a
knock
feeling
68
that's
off.
gonna go
All right,
very
if
commercial
you'll do
anyways.
those and see, in the same way, do the little chart and see how it looks on that one.
Okay, but if we do that, we're delaying a public hearing and missing our timeline.
Well, no.
Well, I think we need to do something with public hearing. That's why I was suggesting do
Yeah.
that inclusive option 2.
Well, it's early in the month. We can always call for a special meeting. If this is so urgent, I have no problem with calling for an extra meeting, and we can still have the public hearing. So if this is something we've got to do, then that's just the way I feel about it.
I think we at least have 2 board members that won't be here next week, or wouldn't be around next week, right?
Next week?
Yep.
I don't think she's calling for next week. In February, right? Yeah, I mean, that's what she's saying, I think, after. There's a question on the table.
Okay, any more discussion before we have a vote?
So I just want to make sure we're clear. We're putting an option on the table just to get the public hearing scheduled. We will discuss the options.
Which allows the public to review the maps and provide us input in a formal
Right.
basis.
Right.
And be notified.
Because right now, there's probably several people that have no idea what we're doing. Okay, we'll call the question. Those in favor of the proposal number 2 for a public hearing only, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
6-1. Okay. Guess we went on to past the start time of the football game. I apologize for that.
I think it's a whole lot more important.
But we do have a closed session as well. But at least most of these folks can call it a night. So I'll need a motion to convene in closed session to consult with attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege pursuant to General Statute 143-318-11A3 to consider confidential personal matters pursuant to General Statute 143-318-11A6. Do I have a motion? Laura, Ms. Blackwell, any second? Second by Ms. Grimsley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, with that, good night, and we'll see you next month.